It's irrelevant. People oppose it. It's the single biggest losing issue for Barack Obama. So when Barack Obama says, "Well, how do people think I'm going to be a tyrant? I'm not. I'm only here for another year." That's really listen. He thinks you're stupid. That's what bothers me. He thinks he's so clever and you're an idiot that you go, "Well, gee, I guess he only has a year." So then that's the end of it. The laws stay, dummy. This week is pretty big, so I want to talk about this because there was the Obama presser and then the Anderson Cooper sit-down sort of. Do we call that a town hall, Jared?
It was something other than that. We're still working on it.
We're still working on a title
name.
because it was kind of like an invite only. Anyway, one thing before we get into some of the arguments, and I understand there's misinformation on both sides, here is what is so pivotal. When people say the social justice warrior left, the people who accuse you of racism, sexism, that's just a small fringe. Dave Rubin, I'm talking to you. I love you, brother. But I think you're realizing it's not the regressive left. This is mainstream leftism. I've always talked about how leftists, their technique is to shut down dialogue before it begins through character assassination. So let's go, before we get to the arguments, why does Barack Obama not want to get to the arguments? Well, let's roll this clip.
Just so I'm clear, tonight you're saying you would welcome to meet with the NRA.
Anderson, I've said this repeatedly. I'm happy to meet with him. I'm happy to talk to him. But the conversation has to be based on facts and truth and what we're actually proposing, not some imaginary fiction in which Obama's trying to take away your guns.
You see what just happened there? Before we even discuss anything, Barack Obama has said that the NRA and its supporters are liars. So before the gun owners come to sit at the table and present our arguments, as Barack Obama is doing, he's already stacked the deck. You're liars. I'm willing to talk about it if you're gonna be willing to talk about truth and statistics and facts and not some okay. Well, what if we present...
Who's facts?
Yeah, who's facts, exactly. Chris Kyle's wife was there. I don't want to play the clip. It's too long. We'll bring it up here on YouTube, I guess, for when people watch the video. Well, okay, facts and statistics, right? How about the fact that gun deaths have gone down with increased gun ownership in the United States? How about the fact that states with concealed carry have far fewer attacks against civilians? Carjacking, states that have looser gun laws. Those are facts. But Barack Obama doesn't present those facts. He presents his opinion and says, well, we'll only have the discussion if it takes place on an honest playing field. So right away, he's trying to accuse you of being a liar. Couple of things. So then we'll get into some of these arguments. But I just want to make sure you understand that right off the bat.
What can you say to somebody tonight to convince them that you don't want to take away everybody's guns, that you're not coming for their guns?
Well, first of all, Anderson, I think it's useful to keep in mind I've been now president for over 7 years, and gun sales don't seem to have suffered during that time.
If anything, actually, you've helped.
They've gone up. I've been very good for gun manufacturers. More importantly, I'll tell you a story that I think indicates how I see the issue. Back in 2007, 2008, when I was campaigning, I'd leave Chicago, a city which is wonderful. I couldn't be prouder of my city.
We're talking about Chicago. You couldn't be prouder of your city, Chicago.
Pardon my French, but you're an asshole.
And I know you're not supposed to say that about the president. It's not polite, but I just want to reiterate. Chicago, I'm proud of it. Why are you proud of Chicago? Chicago has the kind of gun control policies that you want to implement. We're not going to talk about the Second Amendment and your rights as an American today. We've done a video on that before. We've talked about it at great length. Right now, we're specifically addressing Barack Obama. Okay. So he goes into the fact that it's a conspiracy. We have this here really quickly.
Is it fair to call it a conspiracy? I mean,
Well, yeah.
there's a lot of people really believe this deeply, that they just don't.
No.
They just don't trust you.
I'm sorry, Cooper. Yes, it is fair to call it a conspiracy. What are you saying? Are you suggesting that the notion that we are creating a plot to take everybody's guns away so that we can impose martial law
but there's certainly
is
a lot of
a
people.
conspiracy? Yes, that is a conspiracy. I would hope that you would agree with that. Is that controversial?
A couple of things there that are really important. We'll get to the conspiracy in a second. I would hope Don't tell a journalist what he should or shouldn't think. I know Anderson Cooper will bend over for you along with everyone else at the bar down in the West Village and take your answer, but don't tell a journalist what he should or shouldn't think. I would hope. And that's why he bans Fox News from pressers, because like, oh, you know, I can tell him I would hope, but my Jedi mind trick doesn't work. Don't tell him what he should or shouldn't think. Conspiracy. Well, it's, again, he's already painted gun owners as liars, right? As though we just want to go out and have these machine guns, and we think that Barack Obama is the queen, and that we have no idea what we're talking about. Well, I've got it right here. Barack Obama praised the Australian gun ban, right? Got it up on the screen. His quote, "When Australia had a mass killing, it was just so shocking to the system. The entire country said, well, we're going to completely change our gun laws." And they did, and it hasn't happened. That's his quote. He was praising the Australia gun law. Now, I know I'll get a lot of leftists right now going, well, it wasn't a ban. It was a mandatory buyback program, which is a ban. You can call it whatever you want. Mandatory buyback means you have a gun, you're mandated to basically sell it back to the government. It's like cash for clunkers for guns, only you had no choice. So when Barack Obama is praising an all-out gun ban in Australia, how is that conspiratorial for someone who supports Second Amendment rights? Again, we can have a civil discussion about it. You maybe don't believe in the Second Amendment. I do. But don't tell me it's conspiratorial to go, oh my gosh, you're a fan of that Australian gun ban? I think it was great. Oh, so you want to ban guns. Now you're being conspiracy theorist. You're just being crazy. You're just being, what? Am I in some, what kind of rabbit hole did I jump into? What parallel universe am I in? But here's one thing too. Barack Obama doesn't really understand the Second Amendment he's also admitted, by the way, he's never owned a gun. He's surrounded by Secret Service men who own guns and use guns, but he's never owned a gun, which may imply that I thought it was wordplay. It may just be stupidity on the automatic, semi-automatic thing. We'll get into that. But really quickly, this is what he considers to be conspiracy, along with his support of the Australian gun ban.
What I think Mark is alluding to is what I said earlier, this notion of a conspiracy out there, and it gets wrapped up in concerns about the federal government. Now, there's a long history of that. That's in our DNA. You know, the United States was born suspicious of some distant authority.
Okay, now I don't want to do the conservative thing where I just say, see, he doesn't think that it was the American Revolution, but he certainly doesn't have the reverence for it. And to even use it as a comparison for modern conspiracy theorists implies that there's some kind of parallel. Can we all agree it was legitimate, the American Revolutionary War, that guns were necessary? Can we all, it doesn't seem that he agrees with that. That's a little bit nutty for me. So when you start off with, this conspiracy of a distant land, and then you praise the Australian gun ban, I'm going, okay, maybe there's an issue here. Maybe you do want to ban guns. By the way, let's look at the results. I have them here in Australia. The Australian gun ban resulted in more guns than ever, both legal and illegal. And the numbers aren't in yet as far as the violent crime rate, okay? So a couple things. Here are some results. We have this up on the screen. More guns than ever in Australia. Now, let's look at this. He's also talked about how nowhere else do they have these kinds of shootings or mass homicides with guns. Okay, I understand it. He points to Europe. Barack Obama prefers Europe. He thinks that Europe is doing very well right now. Some would disagree. Britain and Wales. Now, violent crimes per 100,000. I have the chart up on screen, 898 to 387 in the United States. So more guns are involved with violent crimes in the United States, but violent crime is overall higher. Now, before you send your hate mail, I understand. It's hard to compare violent crime rates across countries, right? We have a different standard for violent crime. Same thing with infanticide. We consider babies to be a part of the infant mortality rate that they just don't even count as lives in most of Europe. But the crime rate may not be, I'll admit, may not be this much of a disparity between Europe and the United States. It may not be 3 times more in Europe, but the violent crime rate, we can say rape, Sweden's the rape capital. It was a word slip, but Freud is in my brain through the grave telling me, tell them about the rape in Sweden and my Germany. So that's what's happening. Lots of rape over there. Crime rate is at least comparable. So the removal of rights of private citizens, and at best you end up with a comparable crime rate. Now, Barack Obama's never owned a gun. So we do have a clip of him. Roll it.
Even after San Bernardino, they've refused to make it harder for terrorist suspects who can't get on a plane to buy semi-automatic weapons. And some gun retailers are already stepping up by refusing to finalize a purchase without a complete background check or by refraining from selling semi-automatic weapons.
Semi-automatic weapons. Okay, to those listening, again, if you've never owned a gun, semi-automatic weapons is a gun where you handgun, pull a bullet, one trigger, okay? Fully automatic weapons, machine guns, are already illegal. They're inaccessible to all but a very select few people with licenses. So, when Barack Obama says that, is it because he's ignorant or is it because he understands that semi-automatic is a halfway word from automatic and it would be really easy to ban semi-automatic weapons, meaning all your handguns, all your hunting rifles. Anything that's not a pump-action shotgun or a revolver would basically be banned. And I would bet they'd go after revolvers because technically they're double action, but they act as semi-automatics. This is the president. He's either stupid or lying. We'll be back, Louder with Crowder, after this to finish this up for you. So glad to be back. We were talking about the Barack Obama gun deal. All right. Let me go macro on you a little bit here. So we've gotten into the information. My big problem is Barack Obama is painting anyone who opposes his... By the way, it's a majority of the country. It's a majority of the country. A majority of the country even opposes the assault weapons ban, let alone the gun control measures. And you can call it sensible gun control measures or common sense gun control measures all you want. It's irrelevant. People oppose it. It's the single biggest losing issue for Barack Obama. So when Barack Obama says, well, you know, how do people think I'm going to be a tyrant? I'm only here for another year. That's really, listen, he thinks you're stupid. That's what bothers me. He thinks he's so clever and you're an idiot that you go, well, gee, I guess he only has a year. So then that's the end of it. The laws stay, dummy. Think of prohibition. I know the potheads are going to be like, oh, you pot, you're for legal. No, I'm not talking about that right now. Think of any law that was horrific. Think of tax rates. They stay for a long time after a president is gone. The Bush tax cuts stayed with Barack Obama for a long time. So it's silly. It's disingenuous, right? He's trying, well, if you want to believe that me and my only in a year left, that I'm, No, it's that if you enact an executive action right now, that could cause damage for years to come. It can pave the way for Hillary Clinton to try and do another assault weapons ban. People aren't, it assumes such stupidity. So you assume your audience is stupid with that. You paint your opposition as liars. I'll only have it if they want to talk on facts with the NRA. So now you assume that your audience probably is stupid, and you've muddied the waters with semi-automatic. I've actually gotten, Jared, I've gotten corrections this week where we did that meme that, but Mr. President, fully automatic weapons are already illegal, and well, now they're double secret illegal. I received corrections. Actually, they're not. Fully automatic weapons are available since the assault weapons ban was... You dumbass. I actually got at least 24 corrections. Fully automatic weapons are not legal for the average. Now, if you're a heavily armored vehicle, they can, but that's not what they mean to say. They mean to say semi-automatic weapons. Someone who's never fired a gun, someone who's never owned a gun, as Barack Obama has admitted himself, now not a Secret Service, mind you, doesn't know that one trigger pull, one bullet, that's semi-automatic. Handgun, bang, 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 semi-automatic. Leftists want to ban bang, bang, semi-automatic. Not one trigger pull, a bazillion gillion bullets. One trigger pull, bang. Revolvers, even your old 6-shooter revolver, technically it's a double action, but for all intents and purposes, it acts as a semi-automatic. It's just a slightly heavier trigger pull. So to give you an idea, who does that affect? Okay, got a story right up here. We wrote about it at louderwithcrowder.com. 65-year-old grandmother shot a would-be mugger. Let me read this for you. This just happened this week. Barack Obama wants to cry his tears and elicit an emotional reaction. Let me give you the other side. 65-year-old woman, described as 4 foot 11 inches, 105 pounds, technically a midget, by the way. I had a friend who was a midget who got midget money for college. You get like a grant.
Really?
It's under 5 foot. You get the midget money. Anyone out there, file that out in your paperwork. If you're 5 foot, just wear flats, hunch a little bit, get your midget money. Uncle Sam's none the wiser. So, on the way home from a gas station, 4 foot inches. Now there was a man, mugger, Bontates, I don't know how to pronounce this thing. Guy was 5 foot 11, 200 pounds, tried to mug her, and she shot him. He fell to the ground right away. She called 911. the emergency. So she had a pistol. She had a legal concealed carry license. Here's what I want you to do with me for a second. Let's go through this. Go through a checklist, okay? This is actually pretty typical of many American gun owners, and millions of people every year defend themselves with guns and stop rapings or killings. Who does it benefit the most? People like the 65-year-old lady who has no fighting chance against a 200-pound virile young man without a firearm. That's why it's a great equalizer. Did she have a legally owned firearm? Check. Legally valid concealed permit? Check. Was she vigilant of her surroundings? She watched this guy follow her home? Check. That's the first thing they teach you in concealed carry course. The best offense is actually being aware. Before anything happens, the best defense is being aware of your surroundings, being vigilant, and avoiding bad situations. Did she take the appropriate measures immediately following the altercation? Called the cops? Check. I want you to take that and cross-reference that checklist with criminals. With, let's say, the mugger. Do you think, let's go through, do you think he had a legally owned firearm? Would you check that? Do you think he had a legally valid concealed carry permit? Check. Do you think, well, he probably was vigilant of his surroundings because he's spotting the person to rape, or in this case, mug. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure 65-year-old ladies get raped too. Do you think he would take the appropriate measures to notify the authorities? So let's cross-reference the checklist with most gun-owning Americans with a criminal, and you start to see why Americans get a little bit irked. All right, so we have what else do we have here? I had one more thing to talk about with. One thing. Did you notice that Barack Obama said he would not support any candidate who didn't support common sense gun reform?
I did hear that. I didn't think about what that really
I think it's a
implied.
subtle swipe at Bernie, because Bernie Sanders is the only Democrat who's only had running right now who's only had a D- rating from the NRA. Remember they read him the riot act
from Vermont
at the DNC debates?
Yeah,
they were furious with him because he had a D-, and Hillary Clinton was, I have an F, and everyone went, oh, Mallory, I have an F too.
My F minus.
Yeah, I have an F minus.
Got a E.
I even got an F for effort. They did a little commentary with the effort, like Hillary Clinton got an F, but she got a works well with others. Report cards. Did you get those notes in your report cards?
No, I was homeschooled.
No.
I did well.
I got disruptive and/or abusive in class. No, loud and abusive. Loud and abusive. That was the term my dad used. Loud and abusive in class.
Loud and abusive with Crowder.
Loud and abusive with Crowder. So he's proud of Chicago, supports the gun ban from Australia, and paints everyone who disagrees with him as a liar. And he has no idea as to the difference between a semi-automatic or an automatic weapon, and he has never owned a gun. This is the guy you want signing executive actions.
Not to mention not the millions, but the tons of times he said, these are first steps.
Right, these are first steps.
These are, so.
And really important to know. When
never
he says,
elaborating on what the next steps were.
When he says, this is my only year left. Exactly. When your neck was on the line for election or re-election, you didn't bring it up because it's an overwhelmingly losing issue for Democrats. The only reason he's doing it now, he can't push it through. He can't do it properly. The constitutional way has to be an executive action because it's unpopular and he would lose. He's a coward. Louder with Crowder. Stay tuned. Oh, it's you. Glad to see you again. If you like this video, subscribe by clicking my face or the button above. Hey, remember that time when I said I was glad to see you again? I lied.